Mr. Benjamin Crump, Esquire. The name Benjamin Crump is synonymous with the words leader, civil rights activist, and equal rights warrior. You may recognize him as the high-profile attorney in the Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin cases, which had national attention. Without further ado, we'd like to welcome Mr. Crump to the stage for an inspirational commentary.
Good afternoon. I'm so very honored, Ms. Lattimore, and your board to be here at the National Leadership Diversity Summit. It is so very important that we continue to have these summits to talk about, especially now in America, the value of diversity and inclusion. I stand here on the shoulders of previous attorney advocates, Pastor Benoit, like Mahatma Gandhi, who was an activist, attorney who became the father of his nation, India, Nelson Mandela, who was an attorney advocate who became the president of South Africa, Barbara Jordan, an attorney advocate and activist who became the first black woman elected to the U.S. Congress from the South. And certainly my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, an attorney activist who became the first African American to be a Supreme Court justice. And so why do I mention all those names? Now, in this time more than ever, we need to champion activism. We need to understand that there is a place for people who, as I looked earlier to get the official definition so it could be on the record, I know Ms. Lattimore, they're videotaping this luncheon. Activism consists of efforts to promote, impede, or direct social, political, or economic reform or status with the desire to improve society. Let me make this very clear. Our president-elect is an activist of sorts. He advocates his positions and why he feels it will improve society. I challenge you, don't get silent now. We have to become greater advocates and activists to present our positions publicly of what we believe will make a more improved society. You see, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote in his letter from the Birmingham jail that we all, and a lot of people think that that letter from the Birmingham jail, Pastor Davis, he was just speaking to the clergy who wrote him saying that the time isn't right and we don't need these outside agitators. But when Dr. King responded, Ms. Lattimore, he wasn't just talking to these clergy. He was talking, I believe, to all of us, especially us intellectuals, us professionals, us educated individuals who call ourselves moral. You see, that essay, which I think is one of the most incredible essays ever written in the course of human history, when Dr. King took that newspaper column and started to write his response on the edges of the newspaper. And I'm preaching to the choir because you know the story. When he ran out of room, Pastor Benoit, he started writing on toilet paper. And his response, that became the letter from the Birmingham jail. And in that letter, I know he was talking to us lawyers in there, like he was talking to the business leaders as well. When he said, we as moral-minded people have an moral obligation to oppose injustice when we see it. He said if we're going to say we're moral people, when we see wrong, you just can't be silent. You have to say something. You have to do something. And so Dr. King was very clear. He said, we as moral-minded people, when we see unjust laws, we have to speak up. And he went on in that letter to define, in his opinion, what an unjust law was. He said an unjust law was a law that went against God's law, went against laws of morals, went against laws of ethics, laws of humanity. And then he said, we have to support just laws. What are just laws? Those are laws that are in concert with God's law, laws that uphold the greatest values of humanity, laws that uphold morals and ethics. So he said, when you see these unjust laws, we have to do something. And as I fight for the Trayvon Martins of the world and the Michael Browns of the world, the 12-year-old Tamir Rices of the world, the Sandra Blands of the world, the 13 black women in Oklahoma City that were raped by the police officer, as we fight these battles and we see nothing happen to people who commit these horrible acts against unarmed people of color, mostly black and brown people, Dr. King said, we have an obligation if we're going to say we're moral. If we're going to say we're moral, we have an obligation to do something. He said that, it's not enough for people just to say, well, it's legal. Dr. King said, just because people say it's legal, that don't make it right. He said that everything that Germany did to the Jews and everything that Hitler did to the Jews in Germany was legal. That didn't make it right. Everything that they did to black people in the South, in Birmingham, letting dogs attack children, turning 100-mile-an-hour water hoses on women. That was legal. Segregation was legal. Dr. King said that doesn't make it right. So we fast forward to today, and we see these things happen on video. You see people get choked on video like in Eric Gardner. We see 12-year-old Tamir Rice playing on the playground by himself with a BB gun. In less than 1 second, you see the video of the car roll up, and before it even stops, they shoot him, this baby. And we see this on video. We see Sandra Bland. We see Natasha McKinney in Virginia, incarcerated in the jail, barely clothed with a T-shirt, tank top, and underwear, handcuffed, and they tase her 12 times. And she dies. We see this with our eyes. But yet they then come, and us lawyers, because I'm an attorney and I'm part of the system, us attorneys, we come and we intellectually justify it. If you listen to us long enough, us lawyers, we can make something sound reasonable. Boy, it sounds logical, and we listen to us long enough. But we intellectually justify these things, these acts, and we scratch our head and we're silent and we don't say anything. Dr. King said we have a moral obligation. It's not enough to intellectually justify these things. Dr. King said, what about your moral justification? When we see stuff where thousands of black and brown people are languishing in prison cells for selling a $50 bag of marijuana or a $50 bag of crack cocaine, and we listen to the prosecutors and the judges all say, well, we had to sentence them and throw away the key, Pastor Davis, because we had to send a message. We had to be tough on crime, they were poisoning the community. And then we come to Flint, Michigan, where they actually did poison the community. They poisoned 100,000 poor people, mostly of color, and nobody goes to jail. How do you intellectually justify this? And so we as moral-minded people, we have an obligation, Dr. King said, to say something, to do something. You know, we fight these battles in the courtroom, but we also have to fight them outside the courtroom. That's why I'm glad to talk to this august body today, because you all get to fight the battles for economic justice and economic inclusion, not just in the courtrooms, but in the boardrooms, in the community, because we have an obligation, if you're going to say that you're moral, to make it fair, to make it just, to make it equal for everybody. That's our obligation, Dr. King said in that letter from the Birmingham jail. Our silence is betrayal when you see injustice. You cannot be neutral in the face of injustice. Your neutrality becomes part of the injustice. So we have an obligation there. And brothers and sisters, I tell you, when I think of a young man I met, Mr. Gumps, Stand Up Morehouse, our future. This is what we're fighting for. We got to give him a chance. It's not enough for us just to say we're fighting that they don't kill our children with these bullets, with our hands up in the back. That's not enough. We also have to fight for our children that have everything that the American Constitution promises every other citizen in America, a right to life, liberty, and equal opportunity. And that's what the battle is for. The battle of being moral, making America be moral, showing a mirror to our conscience. We have an obligation. Jamie Foxx told me once, and I thought it was profound. We were fighting for justice for Trayvon Martin, and he said, "What can I do?" And we said it, and then Jamie, really started taking an active role. And he was at the pinnacle of his career. He was one of the top box office stars, one of the top recording artists. And, I asked him, I said, "Hey, Jamie, I thank you, man, for doing it. I'm just curious, what was your motivation for doing it?" And he said, "What good is having influence if you don't use it when it matters?" See, you all have influence. You are the business leaders, the community leaders. You are the leaders. Your influence that God has blessed you with, the platform. All he's asking is to try to use it for something worthwhile beyond just yourself. Open the next door for the next generation, because we all have a role to play in this. We all have a purpose that is unique that God has bestowed on each and every one of us. And so I say to you, let's help the Gumps of the world, the Trayvons of the world, all these next generation of young people who are very confused now in America. Let's help give them a great opportunity. Let's give them the promise of the American Constitution. And I leave you with this, as I often like to do when I get an opportunity to talk to leaders. Thurgood Marshall, my personal hero, said that the basis of the American Constitution is simply this: that a black baby born to a black mother, the most uneducated black mother, the most impoverished black mother, the most inarticulate black mother, has the same exact rights as a white baby born to a white mother, the most educated white mother, the most affluent white mother, the most articulate white mother, just by virtue of that baby drawing its first breath as an American. That Thurgood Marshall said, I know that's not the case in America today, but I challenge anybody to say that's not a goal worth fighting for. I challenge anybody to say that's not what makes America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. So when we stand up for justice for the Trayvon Martins of the world, and more importantly, for the unknown Trayvon Martins of the world, what we're really doing is helping America live up to its creed, helping America be this great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel, and more importantly, helping America be America for all Americans. I thank you. God bless you.